Summer nights are supposed to be calm, warm, and unforgettable. But for some people, those nights turned into chilling nightmares they'll never erase. Tonight, you'll hear 3 true terrifying stories of summer nights gone horribly wrong, encounters so disturbing you might never look at the darkness the same way again. It was the middle of July, when the heat felt like it could melt the streets, and nights were the only time the air didn't burn your lungs. I was 19, home from college, and I often went for late-night walks in my neighborhood just to clear my head. The streets were quiet, the sound of crickets filled the air, and porch lights glowed like tiny lighthouses guiding me through the darkness. It was my small routine, something that made the summer nights feel peaceful. But peace doesn't last long when something sinister is waiting just beyond the shadows. That night, I remember leaving the house around 11:30 p.m. My parents were asleep, and I didn't bother telling anyone where I was going. I had headphones in, music turned down low so I could still hear the world around me. I walked down a stretch of road where the streetlights grew fewer and fewer until it was just patches of orange glow surrounded by blackness. I knew the area well, so I wasn't nervous. But then I saw it at first, just a shadow under one of the dim lights. Someone was standing there, completely still, like they were waiting. As I got closer, I realized it was a man. Tall, thin, dressed in jeans and a plain white shirt. His face was hidden in shadow, but he wasn't moving. He was standing in the middle of the sidewalk, as if blocking the way. I slowed down and tried to act casual, pretending to check my phone, but my pulse quickened. I crossed the street, not wanting to pass directly by him. When I reached the other side and looked back, he was gone, just like that, vanished. I told myself maybe he had walked into a yard or cut through somewhere. I tried to shake it off, but the uneasy feeling lingered. I walked faster, trying to get back toward the brighter area near my block. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Not heavy, not running, but deliberate, slow, and steady. My stomach turned cold. I glanced over my shoulder, and under the next streetlight, I saw him again. The same man, standing perfectly still, staring at me. I froze for a second before forcing myself to keep walking. My mind raced. Should I call someone? Should I run? I tried to stay calm and not make it obvious that I was scared, but every instinct screamed that I was in danger. I picked up the pace, my sneakers hitting the pavement quicker. The footsteps behind me sped up too. I didn't dare turn around. This time I just kept moving until I reached the corner of my street. My house was only a block away, but when I turned down it, I looked back, and the man wasn't there. Relief washed over me, but only for a moment. As I walked up to my driveway, I noticed something that made my blood turn to ice. In the reflection of my neighbor's car window, I saw movement behind me. I whipped around, and there he was, standing across the street, directly under the tree in my yard. He was closer now, his face still hidden, and he wasn't moving, just watching. I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped them. I got the door open, slammed it shut, and locked it as fast as I could. My breathing was ragged, my heart racing. I peeked through the blinds, but the street looked empty. He was gone again. I barely slept that night, but by morning I had convinced myself maybe I overreacted. Maybe it was some guy just messing around. But 2 nights later, when I went to leave the house for another walk, I froze. On my porch, tucked carefully against the door, was a folded piece of paper. My name was written on it, in messy handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it, and inside were just 3 words. I see you. I never went on late-night walks again. It was one of those summer nights where the air was thick and sticky. The kind that clung to your skin no matter how many fans you had running. I was 23, visiting my cousin who lived in a quiet rural town. Out there, nights were pitch black, no streetlights, no traffic, just endless fields and the hum of cicadas. My cousin had a big old farmhouse, and while it was charming, in the day. At night, it looked like something out of a horror movie. That night, my cousin and her husband had gone out to a friend's bonfire, but I stayed behind because I wasn't feeling well. They promised they'd be back before midnight. I didn't mind being alone. I curled up on the couch in the living room, turned on a small lamp, and scrolled through my phone. Outside, the only light came from the moon shining across the cornfields that stretched on forever. Around 10:30, I heard a noise upstairs. At first it sounded like wood settling the old creaks of a farmhouse, but then it came again, this time sharper, like a footstep. I sat up, my stomach twisting. I knew for a fact no one else was in the house. My cousin's dogs were sleeping at my feet, and even they perked their ears at the sound. I told myself it could be an animal in the attic. Old houses get critters sometimes, right? I tried to ignore it. But then came another sound, this one much closer, like a slow dragging across the floorboards above me. My body went cold. I muted the TV, and in the silence, I could hear faint but deliberate movement upstairs. I grabbed my phone and called my cousin. No answer. I texted her nothing. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like it would echo through the walls. The dogs suddenly lifted their heads and growled, staring at the staircase that led up to the bedrooms. I didn't know what to do. Running outside didn't feel safe. The house was surrounded by dark, open land. So instead, I crept to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find. I stood by the bottom of the stairs, straining my ears. For a minute, silence. Then, a new sound, a door upstairs, slowly creaking open. I could barely breathe. Every instinct screamed at me to get out, but my legs felt frozen. I forced myself toward the front door, fumbling with the lock. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, this time coming down the stairs. Slow, heavy, deliberate steps, one after another. The dogs barked frantically, their nails clicking against the hardwood as they backed away. I yanked the door open and ran out into the night, the knife still in my hand. I didn't care about shoes or the fact that I was running barefoot on gravelite. Just ran toward the long driveway, my phone in my pocket buzzing with missed calls from my cousin. Halfway down the driveway, I finally turned back. Through the open front door, illuminated by the porch light, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. A man was standing at the top of the stairs, staring out at me. He was tall, wearing dark clothes, and even from that distance, I could tell he was smiling. He didn't move. He just stood there, watching me run. I sprinted until I reached the road, where I flagged down a passing truck. The driver stopped, confused as I screamed that someone was inside the house. He called the police while I shook uncontrollably on the side of the road. When the police arrived, they searched every inch of the house. They found signs of forced entry on a back window and muddy footprints across the upstairs hallway. But the man was gone, just vanished into the night. My cousin and her husband came rushing home, horrified. They swore they locked all the doors before leaving. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. When the police dusted for prints, they found dozens of them, not just near the window, but on the walls, the doors, even the ceiling of the upstairs hallway. The intruder hadn't just broken in, he'd been crawling around the house. That was the last time I ever stayed in that farmhouse. And every summer, since I can't sit in a quiet house at night without imagining those slow, deliberate footsteps coming closer. It was late August, the tail end of summer, when the nights were warm but carried that first hint of autumn chill. I was 21, spending the break working at a small lakeside resort in upstate New York. The place was beautiful in the day, shimmering water, kids running around, families barbecuing, but at night it became something else entirely. The lake turned black and endless, the woods surrounding it pressed in close, and silence fell so heavy you could hear your own heartbeat. One night, after a long shift at the resort cafe, I decided to take a walk down to the dock. It was nearly midnight, but but I wanted some air before heading to bed. Most of the cabins were dark, the families asleep, and only a few porch lights glowed faintly in the distance. The dock stretched far out over the water, and when I stepped onto it, the boards groaned under my weight. I sat at the edge, my feet dangling just above the surface, watching the faint ripples of the lake shimmer in the moonlight. For a while, it was peaceful, but then I heard something. At first, it sounded like water splashing far out on the lake. I squinted into the darkness, trying to see, but there was nothing, just a faint glimmer of the moon on the surface. I told myself it was probably a fish jumping. Still, the sound kept coming. Splash, then silence, splash again, each time closer. I leaned forward, my eyes straining, when I suddenly saw something in the water, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. At first, I thought it was a swimmer, a pale shape, moving slowly, steadily, toward the dock. But the resort was empty, and no one swam in the lake at night. The water was freezing, and it was dangerous. My stomach twisted as I realized the shape wasn't swimming, it was floating. The pale form drifted closer, and then, to my horror, it lifted its head. I could make out a face, white, bloated eyes, wide open, staring directly at me. My breath caught in my throat, and I stumbled back, nearly falling off the dock. But the face didn't disappear. It lingered there in the water, motionless, staring. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing, and turned to run back to shore. But when I looked up, I froze. At the entrance to the dock, blocking the way back, stood a man. He was tall, dressed in dark clothes, his features hidden in shadow. He wasn't moving, just standing there, watching me. Panic surged through me. The only way off the dock was past him or into the water. I glanced back, but the floating face was gone, the lake calm and empty again. When I looked forward, the man was gone too. My legs felt like they were made of stone, but I forced myself to run, sprinting all the way back to the cabin I was staying in. I locked every door and window and sat trembling until the first light of dawn. I tried to tell myself maybe it was my imagination. Maybe I was just exhausted after my shift. But the next day, something happened that made me realize it wasn't. In my head, the resort owner came around to talk to the staff. He looked pale, shaken. The night before, around the same time I'd been on the dock, a guest had gone missing. A middle-aged man staying in one of the lakeside cabins. His family woke up and realized his bed was empty, and no one had seen him since. Police divers searched the lake later that day. By the evening they found him. His body was floating in the same spot where I'd seen that pale, bloated face, and the time they estimated he had drowned. Just hours before I sat on that dock. I never told anyone what I saw that night. Not the face, not the man blocking the dock. But I know what I witnessed wasn't just a coincidence. Sometimes, the lake doesn't just take people. Sometimes, it shows them to you. And that brings us to the end of tonight's stories. 3 very real and very disturbing encounters that all happened on what should have been normal summer nights. It just goes to show you never really know what could be lurking in the shadows, or who might be watching when you least expect it. If you've ever had a chilling experience like these, something you still can't explain, I'd love to hear about it. Share your story down in the comments. I always read what you guys send, and you never know. Your story might end up in a future video. If tonight's stories gave you chills, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel and lets me know you want more content like this. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss the terrifying true stories I have coming up next. Remember, the nights we think are peaceful can sometimes hide the darkest secrets. Stay safe out there. And as always, thanks for watching.